We've all seen them. Maybe you've dated them. Maybe, if you're being honest, you recognize some of it in yourself. The man-child is an adult male who, despite having the body of a grown man, has the emotional maturity of a child or teenager. He might hold a job. He might look put together on the outside. But the moment life asks something real of him, accountability, compromise, long-term thinking, emotional presence, he shuts down. He forgets to pay the bill. He agrees to help and then doesn't get around to it. He shuts down during serious conversations or cracks a joke to avoid going deeper. He blames everyone around him when things go wrong and genuinely can't understand why his partner is frustrated. In psychology, this pattern has a name. It's called Peter Pan syndrome, and it was first described by psychologist Dr. Dan Kiley back in 1983 in his book, The Peter Pan Syndrome: Men Who Have Never Grown Up. Peter Pan syndrome is not an official psychiatric diagnosis. You won't find it in the mental health diagnostic manual, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. It describes a very real and observable pattern of behavior that mental health professionals see all the time. Most people who live this way spend years calling it a dynamic or a rough patch or just how he is. And understanding what's actually happening, not just the behavior on the surface, but the psychological machinery underneath it, is mind-blowing. Because this isn't about a man who never does the dishes. It's about something that starts in childhood, runs invisible through a person's entire adult life, and often passes down to the next generation without anyone ever realizing it. And here's the thing that gets most people. This isn't about laziness. It goes much deeper than that. He can be charming. He can be funny. He's often the life of the party. It's only when life requires more that the cracks appear. Here are the signs. He avoids responsibility. We're not talking about forgetting to take out the trash once. We're talking about consistent, patterned avoidance of anything that requires sustained effort, commitment, or consequence. Bills, serious conversations, doctor's appointments. These things just somehow never get handled unless someone else does them. He refuses to be accountable. When something goes wrong in his life, it is never his fault. The boss is unfair. His ex was crazy. His friends let him down. He has an almost supernatural ability to position himself as the victim in every story. He can't handle serious conversations. Bring up the future, bring up a problem in the relationship, bring up anything that requires emotional depth, and he either shuts down, changes the subject, or deflects with humor. The word commitment sends him into low-grade panic. His emotions control him, not the other way around. Small setbacks cause disproportionately large reactions. He might give you the silent treatment for days over relatively minor things, and rather than managing his mood, he expects everyone around him to manage it for him. He relies on others to run his adult life. A partner who schedules everything, a mother who still does his laundry, a friend who always covers for him. There is always someone absorbing the responsibilities he refuses to carry. And here is one of the most telling patterns of all, what psychologists describe as passive-aggressive avoidance. He agrees to do something, he doesn't do it, you remind him, he accuses you of nagging, you feel guilty, he never does the thing. This cycle can repeat indefinitely. One particular research suggests that men, on average, don't reach full emotional maturity until around age 43. That's well over a decade behind the average for women. Now, that doesn't mean every man is a man-child, but it does suggest that emotional development in men is often slower, and in some cases it can get stuck altogether. The roots almost always trace back to early life. One of the most common starting points is overprotective parenting. When a child is never allowed to face consequences, when every fall is caught before it happens, every discomfort is immediately soothed, every problem is solved before the child even has a chance to try, something critical fails to develop. The child never learns that he can handle difficulty. He never builds resilience. And so when adulthood arrives with its demands, the unconscious response is avoidance. Both permissive parenting, the never say no style, and overprotective parenting are linked to this pattern. The mechanism is different, but the result is similar: an adult who didn't learn how to be one. Then there's the opposite end of the spectrum. Some men didn't grow up spoiled. They grew up in chaos, abuse, trauma, emotional neglect. When childhood is unsafe or painful, some people unconsciously resist leaving it behind. Staying childlike becomes a psychological protection. If I never fully become an adult, I never have to face the full weight of adult pain. At the core of man-child behavior is something called low distress tolerance. This is the inability to sit with uncomfortable feelings: failure, boredom, disappointment, vulnerability. When these feelings arise, the man-child doesn't process them, he escapes them through avoidance, humor, blame, fantasy, or distraction. And underneath almost all of it is deep insecurity.
This is the thing that partners of man-children often miss. The behavior looks like selfishness, like not caring, but what's driving it is usually a profound fear of being exposed as inadequate. If he fully shows up as an adult, with all the responsibility and effort that requires, he might fail, and failure to him doesn't feel good. So staying immature is a kind of armor. You can't fail at things you never really try.
Every Peter Pan needs a Wendy. Dr. Kiley didn't stop at describing the man-child. He also described the person who enables him, the Wendy figure. The Wendy is the partner, the mother, the friend, who absorbs all the responsibilities the man-child refuses to carry. She makes the appointments. She handles the finances. She manages the emotional weather of the household. She reminds. She plans. She worries. And she tells herself it's because she loves him. She's not stupid, but she's often someone who learned from her own childhood that her value comes from being needed. Taking care of others is how she experiences love, and the man-child, who desperately needs someone to take care of him, is a perfect fit. The cycle that develops looks like this. She gives and gives. Slowly, resentment builds. She expresses frustration. He accuses her of nagging, of trying to control him, of not accepting him for who he is. She feels guilty. She gives more, and nothing changes. Research confirms what anyone who has lived this already knows. These relationships eventually collapse under the weight of one person's burnout. The partner reaches a point where she has nothing left to give, and the man-child, feeling smothered or controlled, moves on to the next relationship and starts the cycle again. And the children watching this dynamic learn something. Sons learn that women exist to manage everything. Daughters learn that being a caretaker is what a relationship looks like. The pattern doesn't just repeat in one person's life, it passes on. The emotional skills that didn't develop on schedule can, with effort and guidance, develop later, but three things have to be present. First, awareness. He needs to be able to see the pattern, not just know about it, but genuinely recognize it in himself. This is the rarest ingredient, because the man-child's default is to locate the problem everywhere except inside himself. Second, willingness. Knowing isn't enough. He has to actually want to grow. Not just say he wants to, not just want his partner to stop being upset, but genuinely want to develop. Growth is uncomfortable. The man-child has spent his whole life avoiding discomfort. Choosing to walk directly toward it requires real motivation. Third, consistent effort over time, not a week of self-reflection. Sustained, long-term work, usually with a therapist, that addresses the root, the attachment wounds, the deep insecurity driving all of it. The hard truth that therapists and psychologists repeat over and over is this: no one else can do this for him. Not a partner, not a parent, not a best friend. In fact, enabling his behavior, absorbing his responsibilities, managing his life, actually removes the very discomfort that would motivate change. The most effective thing someone can do if they're in a relationship with a man-child is stop doing the thing they've been doing. Set firm limits. Refuse to carry his responsibilities. Let the consequences land. Some man-children, when the safety is removed, grow up. Others leave to find a new Wendy. Either way, you get your answer.